All right, hello wine drinking people. Time for more of what I've had to drink yesterday, and this is how I like to spend my Friday evenings with a bunch of my wine drinking people and some of the world's greatest wines. You know, this is an event we put on just because we want to see how the 1996 vintage is drinking from Bordeaux. I don't have a ton of these wines to sell. I have a few things we'll put pricing on, but more importantly, I know a lot of you are wine drinking people, have got these wines in your cellar, and you want to see how they're drinking. And it was fun to throw a few California wines in there. And because we did that, we showed all of the wines blind. So you don't have a preconceived idea of what the wine should taste like or how good it should be because of the price tag. So this was an incredible event. It sold out without even sending an email out about it. So some of you are going, well, what happened? I didn't even see an email. Well, you got to look ahead on our calendar of events because these once-in-a-lifetime events, this event was only $250. We served you dinner also. And, you know, several of these wines are over $500 a bottle. And just an incredible evening. Everybody who came was just blown away at the quality of this 96 vintage, which for me is the best vintage in the 90s. When you look at the 90s, 91 was a frost year. Very small production, but there were some good wines. Very hard to find now. 92, an awful vintage in Bordeaux. A washout. Most of the wines not even drinkable at this point. 93 was good. Not great. 94 also had some highlights, you know, the St. Emilion and Pomerols, but not great. 95 was the first vintage that the critics had to talk about, and I think they overestimated the quality of the 95s because a lot of them got rated higher than the 96s, and I've always liked the 96s better. To me, they've always shown more fruit, more balance. The 95s are still austere. I don't know if they'll ever come out of that austere state, but 96 to me is the money vintage in Bordeaux from the 90s. 98 was pretty good. 99 was drinking beautifully right now, but for me, if I had put my money into a vintage in the 90s, it would be 96. And this tasting proved why. We started out our first flight of wines, the Viader, Clermont, Haut-Bataille, and Lafleur, and unfortunately, the Lafleur was corked. One of the money wines on the table, and you know, we don't get a lot of corked wines here at these tastings, so 1 out of 16 is not a bad average. Well, and we don't like the Lafleur to be corked. Anyways, the Viader fooled a lot of people in this flight. Let me tell you, it wasn't a clear-cut decision that this was the wine that was from California, and it's a blend of 59% Cabernet, 41% Cabernet Franc, so a unique blend for California, but for me, it was easy to pick that out. This wine had more forward fruit to it. It didn't have that earthy note that the Bordeaux had. Just screamed California to me. Anyways, it had a lovely dark currant and cassis fruit on the nose with tobacco, cedar, and noticeable evolution, but still quite balanced here on the palate. A solid core of fruit, soft velvety tannins, lovely freshness, echoing that spice and nuance. The herbs from the nose coming through on the finish. Most excellent juice. This wine still got some life in it as well. 96, a great vintage from California also. A little bit tannic on release, but the wine's really coming into their own now. The Clermont, which is a blend of 51% Cab, 37% Merlot, 12% Cabernet Franc, a classic Pauillac, currant, cigar box, spice, cedar, some fresh earth, a really lovely bouquet. Several people got, you know, all these wines picked out as right. You know, Pessac and Pauillac, very different. The Pessac had a wonderful fruitiness to the nose. Several people picked this as the California wine for that, but it also had this herbal, minty quality, and a graveliness you get from the minerality in Pessac, and a lovely black currant and cassis berry fruit, some tobacco spice here, and you know, like I said, I could see why you would think this was a California wine, but for me, you know, the Viader, really easy to pick in this first flight. And a lot of nice cassis fruit to this wine, a solid core of fruit, but still had that herbal and that earthy notice on the finish, that gravelly minerality. The 96 Haut-Bataille and the Clermont, to me, have equal in quality, both excellent bottles of Bordeaux, and still a couple years away from their peak. All right, the Simi, Alexander Valley Cab was our California wine in this flight. This was the Reserve Simi, and I think Paul House made this. He was the winemaker there in the 90s. And 96 Lynch Bage, 96 De Cru Bocayou, and Coda Estrenel up next. And these wines should have been easy also. You know, Simi, to me, screamed California. It had this lovely peppery spice to the nose, which may have led some people to believe it was Bordeaux. It had this tobacco note also, but clearly the fruitiest wine. And, well, not on the second day. It was amazing. The Lynch Bage on the second day, wow, incredible fruit on the nose. Sweet currants, cassis, fine herbs, cedar, notes of smoke, and fresh plowed earth. really nice complexity, man. This wine's still quite large on the palate, also really showing lovely tannins and a lovely balance in this wine. Like I said, it needed a day to open up. This wine's got another 20 years easily in the bottle. If you got it in magnums, you could keep it for 50 or 100. And the biggest wine on the table, with the exception of the Haut-Brion and the Mouton. The De Cru showing the elegance of Saint Julien, a really textbook wine here from this region, and lovely currant and cassis berry fruit, toffee, coffee, cigar box spice, and really nice earthy notes. A really nice softness and elegance to this wine on the palate as well. An array of that sweet currant and berry fruit, and really drinking nice, but got good structure and balance. This wine will last another 10-20 years easily as well. The Côte d'Estournel had that textbook curry spice to it, and this wine kind of easy to pick out. The Saint Estèphes tend to be a little more austere in nature also, and really big wine. This wine needs some time also. The Simi showing nicely though, standing up to these Bordeaux's, and well, it's my lesser wine in the flight, but still an excellent bottle of wine. Really lovely balance, notes of mocha and that peppery tobacco spice showing on the finish. All right, and then the one of the money flights. We had two money flights here. This flight had the Pichon Lalande, which is a Pauillac Haut-Brion, Le Mission Haut-Brion, and a Reverie, which is a Diamond Mountain Cabernet Sauvignon. And this was a flight I really screwed up. I told everybody the Le Mission and Haut-Brion are going to be easy to pick out because they have a really similar bouquet, and the Pichon and the Reverie should be very different from each other. And you know, one of the things I look for when I'm blind tasting wines is I look for, well, Bordeaux has a certain savory quality to it that most of the wines from Napa do not have on the finish. They're more sweet, and the wines from Diamond Mountain, though, can be very deceiving, and the most Bordeaux-like of all the wines from Bordeaux, I think, come from this region, like Diamond Creek, for instance. Well, that was a wine that's 12.5% alcohol for most of the old vintages, up until just recently, rather. But this Reverie was, several people voted this for the wine of the night. I picked it out as the Haut-Brion, and to me, the Haut-Brion needed a day to open up. It was not very impressive the day we opened it up. It didn't have that smoky barbecue kind of note that it has to it, and the Le Mission had also. This wine really, on the second day, was just so much better. It was one of my favorite wines on the table the next morning, and you know, the Pichon just really a standout also. This wine showing beautifully, but still tightly wound like Pauillac. Still a baby. It needs time to come through. But the Haut-Brion and Le Mission, like I said, on the second day, the Haut-Brion was just stunning. And that smoky nuance you get for it, the tobacco and cedar spice. Really complex wine. Big and chewy. And you could tell this wine's got years ahead of it. And showing a little bit muted, the fruit on the first day. But like I said, the second day, like a totally different wine. Most excellent juice. My favorite wine in this flight. But the Reverie was just as good. I mean, this wine was just huge. It's 87% Cab, 13% Cabernet Franc. Had incredible bouquet of fresh plowed earth, coffee, cigar box spice, cedar, dark currant berry fruit, really rich. Some vanilla spice coming out on the second day. This one was all that and a box of chocolates, man. Cut from the same cloth of the Bordeaux. And like I said, got several votes for wine of the night. And only $100. I mean, it's not that expensive when you look at some of these Bordeaux. The Haut-Brion, over 5 times that. The Le Mission Haut-Brion, also very expensive wine today, but an incredible flight of wines. All 4 of these wines showing brilliantly on the second day. The Haut-Brion needed a day to open up. All right, and then the money flight, the Palmer, Schaefer Hillside Select, and Chateau Mouton, which blind, there wasn't one person in the room that missed this flight. This was a real easy one to pick out. The Schaefer, the highest rated wine on the table, and really showed wine. This is a poster child for great California Cabernet Sauvignon. Just an incredible bouquet in this wine. Dark cherry, dark currant, tobacco spice, dark chocolate, espresso. Incredibly big and chewy on the tongue. Lovely richness, very fine balance in this wine as well. Just an incredible array of fruit, tannins, earth, spice, and just, this is going to last another 20 years. An incredibly immense wine. The Mouton Rothschild, also a huge wine. You know, so for me, I mean, those 2 wines you look for first, the 2 biggest wines, and of course the California wine, showing that gorgeous fruit that California wines have. The Mouton showing an array of dark currant and cassis berry fruit, also with roasted coffee, fresh earth, graphite. Really unmistakable, I thought, as Mouton, and 20 out of 20 people in the room got this right as well. And this wine's still very big, and just needs another 20 or 30 years. Really showed the pedigree of this first growth. And then the Palmer, a very elegant wine. This wine is 55% Cab, 40% Merlot, so it's got quite a bit of Merlot in it. Like I said, in this flight, I mean, Palmer, Margaux tends to be very elegant wine, very forward, very seductive, and this wine showed its pedigree being from Margaux, and really brilliant display of currant and plum fruit, cigar box spice, dried floral notes, and not the biggest of the wine, but maybe the prettiest of the wine on the table here. A lovely array of spice and just incredible balance. Not a blockbuster again, but this wine will last a few decades in your cellar. Also, most excellent juice, but like I said, the wines of the night for me, the Schaefer and the Mouton Rothschild, both of these wines, killer wines you want to have in your collection 10, 20 years from now. Hey, we had to open up a little something sweet. We can't do a Bordeaux tasting and not show you a Sauternes or Barsac in the Couté 95. I didn't have any 96s, so I picked the closest vintage, 95, a very good vintage for Sauternes. This wine showing an array of succulent peach and apricot fruit, some brilliant honey, vanilla, pretty floral notes, really rich and creamy on the tongue, a lot of sweet fruit, but again, these wines have got fabulous acidity, leaving them balanced and fresh on the finish. Beautiful with the chocolate-covered bacon. Ooh, one of my favorite things in life. That was our 1996 Bordeaux tasting. I'm your host, Andrew Lamposoni, signing off for the Wine Watch, saying, remember, always drink the good stuff first.